Hey there, it's Kathy from Sycamore and Cotton, and in this video we have 5 new flips instead of the usual 3, so let's get started. So I've had this box for a while. It's in rough shape, but I thought I could do something with it, and I've just added this color just to see how it looks. It's a new color that I had just gotten from DIY Paints, and I got it a month or so ago and hadn't used it yet, and I knew that I wanted to put decoupage on this box and had ordered this paper. I think it's by Roycycled Treasures, I'm not sure, I'll have to go back and check. But when I got it, I saw that there's quite a bit of coral in it, more so than pink, especially the shade of pink that I have. So I thought, well, I could try that new paint, and I just put it on the edges here. This is just one coat, but this is a nice box made out of sturdy wood. It's got really nice hardware, all intact, and it works. So what I learned from watching others is that when you have a piece of furniture or something like this that has a pretty bad odor, you can shellac it, you spray it with polyurethane or even spray paint. So I did a good coat of polyurethane, and then I thought, what am I going to do for this inside, because it looks pretty rough itself. And I also got some white spray paint and decided to spray paint it as well. I'm not sure what I'll do with the inside, if I'm going to cover it in decoupage paper, if I'm going to paint it. Could possibly even put a fabric in it, I guess. I don't really want to do that though. But anyway, this is my project today that I have started on. It's late afternoon. I should have gotten an earlier start, but I actually had a meeting planned this morning, well, for early afternoon, and I didn't want to get busy in my shop and then have to stop and go to the meeting, because, well, once I get my flow, I don't like to interrupt it. The meeting was canceled, so I came on down, eventually made my way downstairs to my workshop. Sorry for all this mess. This is always a work in progress. Always several projects that I've started and reached a point where I don't know what to do, or lost interest, or just whatever. So such is my life as a creator. Does anyone else have that problem? But anyway, follow along, and let's see what I can do with this box. I start by giving a coat of white chalk paint on the front, because I know that I want to put decoupage paper there, and when you're decoupaging, you need to have a white base to put your paper down on, because it brightens up the design when it's laying on a white base rather than a dark or colored base. It would distort your colors in your decoupage paper, and it would distort the shading and everything. So you start with white. I know that I'm also going to put decoupage paper on the back, so same thing there, and also on the top. So I'll be doing it on the top as well. As with many of my projects, I really don't know what I am going to do until I get started, and then just kind of figure it out as I go along. So what I'm doing right here is I am marking the sides of this box so that I can find the middle and mark it off using painter's tape to mark it off for painting stripes. I decide to make the ends stripes in green and white, so I put down my base color of green, and then I will finish marking off once the green is put down on both ends, I'll finish marking off the stripes using the masking tape. And I really like this green. It is called Celery by Waverly. It's such a pretty, calming shade of green, and I like it a lot. And Waverly paint always performs really well for me. I go over both ends with 2 coats of the paint, and after giving the paint ample time to dry, I then continue with placing the tape to mark my stripes, and then start painting the stripes in white with the green showing in the background. And this is the result. I do that on both ends of the box, both sides of the box. Next, I start applying the decoupage paper, and the course of working on this box took place over a number of days, probably over a 2-week period. Actually, I really had no clue how I wanted to do this exactly. I had a basic idea, but you know, it really just, I just wasn't sure if I liked how it was going, but I just kept moving forward with it, making, you know, one step at a time, knowing that, well, if I don't like this, I can always take it off, sand it down, paint it over, and start again. But I do like the decoupage paper, so I'm applying it to the front. I did not remove the gold hardware at this section because you could not. It was the way that it was attached on there. There was no way to get that off of there. And then I already have it on the top, and then I decide to put it on the back, because initially I wasn't sure if I wanted it on the back, if I wanted to paint the back, or if I wanted to you know, with the stripes or what. But I decided while doing this that I wanted to take some of the larger leaves from the decoupage paper, cut them out as close to the leaf as possible so that I don't leave a white background around the edge very much at all. And then decoupage those single leaves down on the ends of the box that I've painted with stripes, the green and white stripe. I'm so happy with how that turned out. I did it on both ends, and really I think this is what gives this little box its uniqueness. What do you think about that? It was a little tedious cutting them out, but well worth it. So next I move on to the bottom and the insides. You know, the inside looks pretty bad. The bottom I could leave this way, but I like giving everything a finished look, so I take my darker green paint in Fern. It is also a Waverly paint, and I give it 2 good coats on the bottom. And then I decide, you know, I'm just going to paint the inside as well, and I decide to paint the inside of the box in the same color, the inside compartment of the box. I had already painted over the coral around the rim of the lid. I just thought that was just too bright with this paper and with the green and white stripes, so I painted over it using Celery of Waverly paint, and decided to do the inside of the lid in the same thing so that there would not be a contrast when you open it up. So you do have the contrast between the lid and the inside of the box, with the lid being Celery and the inside of the box being Fern, but it's not that big of a contrast, and I kind of like that it is a contrast that way. I'm pretty happy with how this box turned out. I would like to know your opinions on it. I am hoping that all the extra steps that I took to remove the odor, because I'd had this for at least a year, and the odor had never gone away. It went away when I left the lid open, but when I closed it and opened it back up again after some time, it would still be there. So I haven't tested it out since working on it, and I'm really hoping that that has resolved that problem. If not, I don't know what I'll do, but probably spray over the whole thing with shellac. What I'm doing here is applying Rub and Buff in antique gold to the hardware. And this box is almost finished. I'll go over it in a little sandpaper just to kind of give it a little rustic, distressed look, and then channel. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I certainly appreciate all of you. Please take a minute here and like and subscribe for more projects like this if you've enjoyed the first one. Next project is going to be upcycling this, or giving a makeover to this candle holder, which the stem is in the design of a cross. I think the detail work on this is so pretty, and it just needs to be wiped down a little bit, get some dust off of it. There's so much detail that, that did take a minute, just making sure I got all the dust worked out of it. And I'm going to start with a coat of paint. I believe this color is called Blue Suede. It is by Folk Art, and I just love the color. It's a recent one that I got, and it's a really, really pretty color. So I'm just going to paint it, and it takes a couple of coats of paint. Full disclosure, shortly after getting home with this candle holder, I knocked it off and onto the floor, and it cracked it at the base of the cross. So right at the bottom, part of it connects to the base of the candle holder. And I thought, oh no, and there's a wire that is supporting the stem of the candle holder, the cross part, a thick, heavy wire, and it was bent a little, and a chunk of the resin, I believe is what this is made of, had fallen off. And so I straightened it up, straightened the wire up, and made a casting of the other side. And I don't show any of this because this was just an effort to save it when this first happened several months ago. And it's not a perfect casting, but I then cast an air dry clay molding of the side that was undamaged and applied that to the side that was damaged. As I said, it's not perfect. It did not get all the detail that the other side has, or that it originally had, but it's enough to salvage this piece. I think it's a beautiful piece, and I was kind of heartbroken that I did break it. So what you see me doing right now is I am applying a clear wax. I have already gotten the paint on there in both the coats, and I'm putting a clear wax on because my next step is to apply a black wax. That is done because it makes it easier to remove the dark wax that I'll be putting on top of it. If I were to put the black wax on the paint, directly onto the paint itself, the paint would absorb more of the dark wax before I could get it wiped off. By putting the clear wax on first, that gives you a barrier between the paint and the dark wax. And what I intend to do is leave the dark wax in the crevices of the details, but get most of it off the surface. And by putting that clear wax on prior to, now as I start wiping back the dark wax, I'm finding that it's pulling off the blue paint in some places and revealing the gold original paint. That was not part of the plan, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I think that might have been caused by a few reasons. It could be the kind of clear wax that I put on is more liquidy than the true wax. That might have caused it. I may not have given enough time for the paint itself to dry. I may not have given enough time for the clear wax to dry before applying the black. But regardless of how it happened, I really like the result. So I think it turned out very organic looking, and I don't think I would have gotten that same look if I had tried to apply rub and buff to it. So I'm happy with it. Tell me what you think, and have you had happy accidents like this as well? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more projects like these. Next up is a makeover for this teapot, which is actually a bank. That spout on the teapot is closed up. There is a slot for your money, and there is the plug on the bottom. I started by giving it a good wash and then spray painting it. This is just a primer that I had on hand. I'll be taking it inside and painting it white, and I wanted to make sure that it had a solid base coat and that none of that green paint came through or bled through. Because the design that was painted on the teapot was thick around the edges in some places, I wanted to apply a textured paint so that it would disguise that and have more of a solid, smooth surface. Now I'm adding, I just added baking soda to my paint and giving that a good stir, mixing it up. You can add baking soda for a textured paint, and the thicker it is, then the more texture you're going to have. So I get this pretty thick, as you can see there, and start dabbing it on, stippling it on, like I often do when I don't want to leave brush marks. So as you can see, I'm getting pretty good coverage here, and almost good enough coverage that I could get by with one coat. But for me, I want to make sure I have a good solid white coat, and so I will go on and put a second coat on after I've given this time to dry. I let those 2 coats of paint dry overnight so I'd have a good dry surface, and I decided to sand it down using 220 grit sandpaper to remove some of the bumps. Obviously this is a textured surface with the textured paint, and I wanted it textured, but I didn't want it real bumpy, so I smoothed it down. Also, I'm planning to use a transfer on this, and I needed it to have a little bit smoother surface so that the transfer would not rip or tear or have bumps underneath it. And this is the inspiration for this piece. That's a beautiful vase, and it's by Prima Redesign. I'm cutting close to the edges. I'm making relief cuts on the transfers as well, cutting between some of the lettering, some of the spaces where there's nothing there. And this is where I started having a problem. The transfer was not sticking. My workshop is in our garage, and there's so much humidity right now because we have had rain for 2 weeks straight. Pretty much every single day has at least one downpour, and sometimes off and on rain all day long. It's really been an unusual spring with as much dampness and as much rain as we've had. And I've noticed that even though my paint is dry, not on just this project but on others as well, that there's still moisture in it, and it has definitely given me some issues. So I took this teapot outside, let it dry in the sun when we had an afternoon of some sunshine, and then brought it back in and managed to get this transfer on. I didn't go further because I wanted to get these pictures and get this ready for this video because I'm already running a day late, and I wanted to show you at least hopefully you like it. Now on to our next project. I love birds, and hopefully you all know that. If you've seen any of my past videos, you've likely seen me working on bird decor. So this little bird came from the dollar store. I think I paid $3 for it. It is sold to use as is, but I knew that I wanted to use it as a blank and paint it and dress it up a little bit. So I'm painting it in way. After 2 coats of paint and letting it dry, I am now applying transfers from the Lost Garden collection. If you've seen any of my recent videos, you know that I'm using this a lot right now. I am absolutely in love with this transfer set. It is so pretty and so whimsical and wispy, and I really have lost count of the number of projects that I've used it on already, and I still have so much to still use. So it's really worth the investment when you purchase this. And again, I am not in any way affiliated with IOD, but I do like this transfer. And I think it's important as creatives to let others know when a product works well for us. So now you can see me just using my fingers. This is a small, it's a small object to be applying transfers to, but it's also a shape that has some challenges. And so actually using my nail works really well on small areas like this. So I do have my tool there, but I really didn't need to use it. I did use it for the larger part of the transfer, but these small minor details that I'm adding, just use my nail. Once you add your transfer, you do need to burnish it. You can use your hand as long as your hand is nice and clean. You can also use the paper that the transfer came on. Sometimes it does pull up, so you need to be really careful and rub it gently. My next step for this little bird is to apply Pent Art's Fine Crackle. It's a two-step process, and here I am applying the step one, which is thick glue, and you put that down and then give that a chance to dry, and then come back with step two. I have been using this quite a lot since getting it recently, and I really love the crackle that it gives the things that I'm putting it on. And here I'm applying step two, which is an amber color liquid. It is a bit more liquidy than step one, so you do have to be careful and make sure that it's not running and leaving drips. But you can just keep going back with the brush, and that's really not a problem. And then you let that dry thoroughly, and then on to the next step, which is applying a dark wax. Almost too much with the transfers. I'll learn a lesson from this and not apply the Pent Art Crackle median on the transfers anymore. This almost was too much there, but as it is, I still love it. Tell me what you think about it. Project 4 is a makeover for this bird. I do not recall what it was originally, what it looked like originally when I thrifted it, but I painted it navy blue and put a white wax over it, and it was in the shop for a while in the booth, and just it didn't sell, and I wasn't crazy about it either, so I brought it home. It's been sitting in my stash for a little while, and I decided to pull it out, and I'm just going to do a very simple makeover of applying rub and buff to it. What I got was very similar to the cross that I did earlier in this video. The wax was taking off, some of the gold and revealing the blue, which was, again, quite all right. But it seemed that it still needed a little something, and after watching my friend Bailey on Reclaim Grace and Emily on J. Bowen and Company, I decided to add turquoise paint, watered down a little bit, and just add it to the crevices on the bird to create a sort of patina, an aged patina, as if you would see on a piece of brass that was starting to age. Emily and Bailey had done that the night on their videos this week, and I had just watched their videos the night before. And when I looked at this bird this morning, actually, and decided, you know, it needed a little something more, it dawned on me, add the patina, add the turquoise. So I pulled out my turquoise paint, just a cheap little paint that I had, acrylic paint, poured a little bit out, watered it down, and got this really fine tip brush and just started dabbing it on in the places where a patina would be more likely to occur. And just dabbed it on and then dabbed it off. And that was just enough to leave the beginnings of what looks like the aging process on brass. So I love it, and thanks Bailey and thanks Emily for this great idea. Now on to the last project for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed the extra projects that I've thrown in here. I normally do 3, so this has been a little bit longer in terms of having extra projects. So this is another candle holder that I made. If you saw a video, I think the one before last, that I painted white, it was a candle holder that I had made using a thrifted vase and making a base out of it, or a base for it, using the saucers for clay pots, for the terracotta clay pots. And this is done similarly. This one I used a jar. So that middle part is a jar. The top where the candle will go and the base at the bottom are the saucers for the clay pots. And what I'm doing here is just going through and applying a texture paint. This is a candle holder that I had used in my home before, and it kind of had that rustic farmhouse look with, you know, the black and the white and kind of grungy looking. And I want to give it a good solid white base coat, because I'm going to be decoupaging this napkin onto the vase. I start by tearing apart pieces from the napkin. I might have been able to apply the napkin in one piece, but since it is curved surfaces and smaller in one area of the vase than the rest, I didn't want to risk the wrinkles, although I really have a hard time decoupaging without having wrinkles, so it may not have mattered and would definitely have been faster. But as it were, I just work on tearing the napkin apart in sections and applying piece by piece using decoupage medium, actually using Mod Podge. One thing to be really careful about when decoupaging with tissue paper like this is tearing your paper accidentally when you're applying the decoupage medium on top of it, because it can happen in a simple brush stroke. So be extra careful, because when that tissue paper gets wet, it becomes very, very fragile. It's very easy to tear. So be careful with that. Just go slow, take your time. And if it does tear, you can often repair that, but you know, who wants to go through that if you can avoid it? I use a very small paintbrush and get it a little wet, and you'll see me outlining the design, the part of the element that design element that I want to tear apart or tear away, and by outlining it with that wet paintbrush, it makes it easier to tear. You can tear it without using the water, just be extra careful. in doing so. And you could cut it, but it actually looks better when it's torn because you have the organic tear of the tissue rather than a straight edge cut. And your own social media, that helps as well. And just thanks for being here. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.